For more on this, Rich Jaroslovsky joins me from San Francisco. He's the Vice President for Content and Chief Journalist at SmartNews. Welcome to the show, Rich. Great to have you as always. Now, look, there doesn't seem to be a day when there isn't some accusation hurled against Uber of bad behavior. How much more of this can Uber sustain?
Well, I don't necessarily think we've seen the worst of it yet. There are, according to news reports, 5 separate criminal investigations of the company going on, at least 5 that we know of, plus this lawsuit that was filed by the self-driving car affiliate or subsidiary of Google's parent. So I think that the blows are going to continue to rain on Uber for some time to come.
Okay, Rich, but look, it desperately needs this current round of funding that it's going for from SoftBank. It lost $1.5 billion in the third quarter. That's more than it lost in the previous quarter. But latest reports suggest 2 investors have pulled out of the consortium. Could more follow, do you think?
I think more could. You have to think that that the SoftBank consortium did its due diligence and has factored in all these potential pitfalls. I think it's probably a testament to the strength of Uber's business model that it hasn't already collapsed, that this deal hasn't already collapsed under the weight of all these investigations and allegations. And now, most recently, this incident where the judge in the Waymo case is apparently very annoyed with Uber for not handing over information in a timely fashion.
Rich, now, SoftBank's valuation for the bulk of the shares that it's planning on buying puts it at about 30% below the previous round of funding. What does this mean for Uber's ability to fund its operations over the next 12 months, say?
Well, I think that you have to say on some level the clock is ticking. If the SoftBank deal were not to go through, it would be devastating for the company. But even if it did go through, Uber is at the point now where it has to start showing real results. Clearly, the business model is very powerful, but it takes a lot of money. And if these legal risks continue to mount, it can't help but make investors increasingly skittish about where they're putting their money.
Rich, meanwhile, Uber has admitted that 2.7 million people in the UK were affected by a data breach in 2016. It's still fighting to overturn that decision by London's Transport Authority to revoke its license. How important is the UK for its global ambitions?
I think the UK is a really important market for them. I don't think that necessarily any one market except the US market at this point is absolutely critical. So the U.S. is the big enchilada, as we'd say, and the U.K. is important. They certainly want to get that issue resolved. But right now, I think all attention is going to be focused on the U.S. criminal investigations and on the Waymo suit, because those are really the principal immediate and imminent risks to the company's long-term viability.
Rich, I know you said that the business model itself is pretty strong, but with all of this, you have to ask, I mean, are we seeing an unraveling of its original business model? Isn't it going to have to make some really radical changes in how it runs itself?
Well, it is definitely going to make radical changes. The question is whether or not that's a function of flaws in the business model or in the approach that Uber took, which from the very beginning was push the edge of the envelope, engage in tactics that, if they were to come to light, as many of them have started to, would be considered unsavory and unseemly. The company was founded with a no-holds-barred attitude, and that may have helped it establish its dominance in this still very nascent market. But that very attitude that helped it establish its dominance in the U.S. Is also potentially its undoing.
Right. Final question, Rich, and we are running out of time, but do you think that other companies who also operate in the sharing economy are looking at what's happening to Uber and revising how they do business?
Well, the big question is, are Uber's problems a reflection of underlying flaws in the idea of the sharing economy, or are Uber's problems a function of how Uber established itself, of its ethics and of its business morals, if you will? And I think every company involved in this space is going to have to ask itself that question and answer that question. If it's the latter, it's much easier to say, oh, well, that's just Uber's problem. If it's the former, it does raise some questions. My suspicion is it's more the latter than the former, but we'll have to see.
Rich Jaroslovsky of SmartNews in San Francisco, thank you so much.